Quick disclaimer, everything I'm going over here is canon to SpongeBob proper. I'm not going to be using anything established by Kamp, Koral, or the Patrick Star Show, as they clearly have their own continuities. Also, like 95% of what I'm going over is actually stated within the show SpongeBob SquarePants. I'll let you know when I did theorize, but let me tell you right now, it wasn't very often. This story is insane. Eugene Harold Krabs was born on November 30th, 1942. It was a small family consisting of a son of a pirate, the infamous Redbeard Krabs, his wife Betsy Krab, and Eugene's younger sister. They likely didn't have much back then, as Eugene Krabs was forced to wear rags to school, which caused him to be mercilessly bullied by the other kids at Poseidon Elementary. Their financial situation was so dire that when Krabs was 5 years old, his present was a singular dollar.
I was 5 years old, and me father gave me $1. I loved that dollar. Loved it like a brother.
What happened to the dollar, Mr. Krabs?
And one day, at the beach, I spent it on a soda!
Back then, he didn't really understand money much, so when the other kids called a giant rock a dime, he felt an attachment to it, and kept it his entire life. Eugene's childhood wasn't all bad, though. He shared a birthday with and became fast friends with one Sheldon J. Plankton, who was similarly outcasted from their peers. They were so close that when Krabs found a singular penny, he decided to spend it on Plankton. They did everything together, but their friendship would fracture due to a man called Stinky, a fast food mogul who wanted nothing to do with them. Mr. Krabs saw how much money the dude was making, and Plankton saw how much respect he was gathering, and the two of them formulated a recipe that could kill the competition.
You helped me mom and me through some tough times. It would be an honor if you'd be the first to try our delicious burgers. Crab patties KO Old Man J.
The resulting burger was so bad that it killed the neighborhood junkyard watcher, Old Man Jenkins. This was such a huge controversy at the time that it even hit the local papers, and it completely broke the young Krabs' life. It broke apart the friendship between him and Plankton as they fought over who was responsible. According to Bikini Bottom as a whole, though, it wasn't either of the kids. Krabs' parents were to blame. Custody was soon after given to his grandfather Redbeard for a time, until his mother was able to win it back several years later. As for Krabs' father, it's likely that this incident caused him to leave the family. Krabs doesn't mention his father very much to this day, so it can be assumed that there still is a tension between the two. While money was always tight during Krabs' childhood, Betsy's hard work did seem to help him get above the poverty line, eventually even being able to give him proper clothes. As for Eugene Krabs himself, he seemed to have a hard time finding a passion in his young life. He did create the Krabby Patty formula, but he spent most of his adolescence and early adulthood trying to find himself through various flights of fancy, from inspecting dice to being a birthday clown. He almost found something with that last endeavor, but a tragic accident involving an explosive balloon animal left the audience permanently scarred. It left him too ashamed to ever show his face in his hometown ever again. He decided that he needed to get away, as far away as possible, and in doing so, he discovered a passion that would last with him his entire life. The ocean. The ocean under the ocean. The double ocean. Ocean Inception. Mr. Krabs got jobs on various boats, but it did take a while to click. These were largely dead-end jobs, the only things a controversial man such as he could get, working as the bathroom attendant on the SS Gourmet. He did, however, get a job as the head chef on the SS Diarrhea, but he was likely so burned by life at this point that he just didn't care, and wasn't a very good chef on the SS Diarrhea.
Run for your lives, everyone! It's the appetizer!
Then the war happened. And with Krabs' experience on water and a desperation to reclaim his family's honor, he joined the Navy, and actually made something of himself. He rose to the rank of Naval Cadet, and won the appreciation of his crew, being known as Armor Abs Krabs. The camaraderie aboard helped him refine his culinary craft, and actually start to care about what he was putting together. He became a fairly competent naval chef. This put him in direct opposition with his commanding officer, Captain Scarfish, who ruled the ship with a ruthless iron fist, and didn't want the men to be too softened by having too many comforts. Krabs was locked up for insubordination, but Captain Scarfish's incompetence was such that he ended up poisoning the entire crew, leaving them vulnerable to pirate attacks. And one particular pirate queen attacks that vessel. However, there's a strange inconsistency of how Mr. Krabs recounts his tale. He does tell us all that he did break naval code, and he ended up freeing this pirate queen before she could have been put to death. Likely because the statute of limitations has long since passed on that particular crime. Krabs is also even willing to mention that during their conflicts, the pirate queen got flirtatious with them. That is a lot to be honest with, even though there is clearly one obvious lie in this entire tale. Whenever Mr. Krabs tells this story, he portrays this woman as a squirrel. This is an obvious problem as squirrels can't breathe underwater. and the technology was just not up to snuff at the time. The woman couldn't have possibly been a squirrel. And Krabs telling us the story at all clearly means that he's not interested in protecting his honor, especially so late in his life. The only assumption that I can make was that this lie was to protect her honor, because I don't think this pirate queen was a squirrel at all. It's just a theory, but I have to believe that this pirate queen was a whale. Why else would Mr. Krabs abandon the Navy and try to become a pirate himself? He gets himself a ship and names it the Krusty Krab, and for the next few years, he is looting and plundering, even letting his grandfather know what he's doing. It'd be strange at the best of times for a now decorated naval officer to give everything up, but Mr. Krabs has been known to abandon rationale when struck by love, even in his modern life. It's also worth stating that Mr. Krabs never really speaks much about his wife. He doesn't even usually say her name. Could it be that she really was an infamous pirate, and if he talked about her, there's too much of a risk of them figuring out how infamous she really was? In Grandpappy the Pirate, Mr. Krabs says that the reason that he gave up piracy is because he wasn't turning a profit, which doesn't make sense considering how greedy and shrewd that Krabs is known to be throughout his entire life. This piracy arc goes on for years, by the way, fighting fearsome beasts like the abominable snow mollusk. Mr. Krabs says that he eventually sold the pirate ship because he wasn't turning a profit. However, I have to believe that he gave up and sold his pirate ship around this time because this mystery woman died. Either way, after the war and these pirate adventures, Mr. Krabs fell into a deep depression, staying secluded in his home. The war and the death of his lover must have weighed heavily on the man, especially since he didn't have the heart to tell his grandfather that he had retired from piracy. To make matters even more tense, he was also a new father at the time, and a new single father, as his daughter Koral had only been born just a few years prior. Eugene wasn't entirely alone. He had his mother's help, but he still felt very alone. At some point, he must have realized that he couldn't just do nothing and wallow for the rest of his life. He couldn't go back to the ocean yet. It would have been too heavy and it was still too soon. But he did have cooking in his back pocket. And the man took a risk with what little he had left, buying a rundown retirement home and repurposing it as the Krusty Krab, the name of the ship he and his wife had shared. Unfortunately, the crab had gone a little bit crusty at this point. He made strange business decisions, like hiring a man named Squidward Tentacles in the mid-80s, an octopus whose ambitions have been described as incorrect. Krabs' own cooking skills had also faded in the previous few years. It looked to be yet another failure and disappointment in Mr. Krabs' life. Then, he hired a man named Jim. Jim took the Krabby Patty recipe and elevated it to a craft. It caused the reputation of the establishment to bloom, and it became the premier eatery of Bikini Bottom. This eventually caught the attention of an old rival, Sheldon J. Plankton. Anger that Krabs was using their shared recipe that he could no longer recreate himself. Plankton took it upon himself to spend the rest of his life taking the recipe from Krabs. Plankton even went so far as to establish his own restaurant right across the street from Mr. Krabs. If he couldn't steal a formula covertly, he could at least steal the street traffic. However, Plankton's incompetence means that his robberies and his own business weren't very successful. Mr. Krabs was clearly the king of fast food in Bikini Bottom. And with things finally going right for the first time in his life, Mr. Krabs starts to change. He becomes very addicted to money and to success. He doesn't want to go back to rags. He doesn't want to go back to working bathrooms on some random ship in international waters. And he definitely doesn't want to lose anything he has left, already having lost so much. And with someone out there constantly and obviously trying to steal from him, an old lost friend to boot, Krabs clings harder and harder to his material possessions. On some level, he believes that everyone has it in for him, and everyone wants everything that he's worked so hard for.
What? My dime! Me special dime! I always keep it at the back of the register for luck!
Well, I've never seen it.
This in a way becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. By holding on to money so much, Mr. Krabs ends up killing the golden goose. Jim asks for a raise one day, and Mr. Krabs can't even give him that, seeing it as just another theft. Should Mr. Krabs' story about his pirate crew asking for too much be true? It's likely that Eugene saw the past and the present.
Give me a raise or I'm quitting.
A raise? That's not in my dictionary.
So Jim leaves, and Jim becomes a great success in his own right. This isn't the end of the Krusty Krab, though. While the food goes down the tubes, it still has its reputation as the best thing to ever hit Bikini Bottom. But as years go on and more people realize the truth, that statement becomes filled with more and more of a sad irony.
Oh, Krabby Patties, huh?
Finest under the sea!
Yeah, sure. But where's the pizzazz?
Throughout the first season of the show, the Krusty Krab is usually empty or only has a few customers. Even starving people choose to eat elsewhere. This changes when a certain yellow sponge sees a help wanted sign in the window. Back when he was a very young child, he fell in love with the establishment when Jim made it magic. This inspired SpongeBob to push his entire life to recapturing that magic.
Whose first words were, "May I take your order"?
Mine were.
Who made a spatula out of toothpicks and woodchuck?
I did.
However, Mr. Krabs, being old and embittered, he wasn't willing to give a chance on someone so young and naive. In the interim, he'd had a revolving door of fry cooks that just weren't up to snuff. And on the off chance that they would be something good, it'd just be Jim all over again. So, Mr. Krabs sends SpongeBob on a snipe hunt, looking for a spatula that he's sure doesn't exist. And it's at this point that Plankton sees the vulnerability that his old frenemy is in. It's an eatery without a cook and vulnerable to a killing blow. He contacts a bus of anchovies to finish the job. Unfortunately for him, and very fortunately for Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob not only finds this spatula of legend, but saves the day, guaranteeing him a job at the Krusty Krab. And the rest, as they say, is history. SpongeBob was never able to recapture the Golden Age Jim magic, but at present, so much time has passed that he's able to at least live up to the legend, if not the man. Of course, it's an open secret that Mr. Krabs does take SpongeBob for granted.
What?
I bet your contract, and I lost.
He does seem to understand that SpongeBob is the reason that the Krusty Krab is successful again, but it never does seem to occur to him that SpongeBob could go Jim at any time. And it's only in Krabs' good fortune that SpongeBob doesn't realize this either. When things are going well, Mr. Krabs tends to have too much confidence that things will stay that way forever. He has a reason to, as when Squidward quit, Krabs completely won in the dispute. And Krabs has a tendency to assume that things will keep going his way, even if he knows that things are starting to tip. Like during the time both Squidward and SpongeBob went on strike, causing teenagers to quote-unquote wreck the place. This Krabs' confidence also leads him to doing some callous or rash things. He's gambled SpongeBob's contract in an illegal poker game, he's changed his menu or even his type of business on a whim. He's also done illegal or immoral actions, such as selling raw grease to people, or attempting to murder someone he believes is impersonating a health inspector. Don't say he didn't think it would go that far. This man knows what a rancid burger can do, and he's also seen war. This man has killed people before, he's not hesitant to do it again. But underneath the facade, there is this deeply insecure Krab. The greed is the most obvious symptom of that, but it comes up in other areas too. In terms of love, Eugene has this compulsion to keep spending and spending, desperate to not lose the person that he's fancying. It's not just the risk of getting robbed that haunts Krabs. Even his rival having one singular customer is too much for him to handle, because that could be the first step in a role reversal. And while he has a hard time showing love, and has a very difficult time buying it, Krabs has been known to be very overprotective of his daughter Pearl. Also, as Krabs is feeling older and older these days, he becomes more and more desperate to recapture his youth. He has considered going into retirement at this point in his life, however, he still does have some energy and life within him at the ripe old age of unknown, doing things like fishing for clams or pulling off heists like those he did in his youth. But even with his other interests and pursuits, it's clear that there's an emptiness to the man that you just can't fill no matter how many dollars you have. They say that you can't bring it with you when you go, Mr. Krabs. But then he'd simply retort that he bought a golden mausoleum and put it right on top of Smitty's grave, and he'll be laughing in Davy Jones' locker for the rest of eternity, counting the 62 cents that he managed to smuggle with him. So, this was just about the weirdest video that I've ever made, with the exception of the Douglas McDougal video, but because of the events of the past few months, I've just been really out of it. So I guess I needed something really out of it to get back into it. Honestly though, this was actually one of the most fun videos that I have ever made, because I actually didn't do too much speculation. A lot of this is randomly established in various episodes, and it was really interesting and fun to just connect all of the dots. Mr. Krabs actually is my favorite character on the show because there really is a lot to him. Like, I didn't make up the Navy stuff or the pirate stuff, it's all a part of the character. And I suppose if you want to take this video super seriously, it kinda does touch on the debate of how much continuity a show like SpongeBob should care about, because when you have all of this established lore, personally, I believe it makes the character even more interesting and more unique and more special. But I would recommend not taking this video too seriously. I'm just messing around and doing something a little bit ridiculous. But if this video does go well, this won't be the only video like this I'll make. I even got an idea for a sequel, where I'll talk about how SpongeBob as a whole is actually a determinist masterpiece under the hood. But if you want to get that, you're going to have to spread this video around.